Alright, so first things first, before I get into the video, sorry. I'm using my phone to record this video, so this is the first time I'm doing it. It's different. Hopefully I'm able to breeze through the videos a little quicker. But let's get started. Alright, this is a topic that first take is talking about. Once again, it's about Odell Beckham, as you can tell, and they're talking about Stephen A is trying to make a point why the Giants don't need Odell Beckham. So somebody else say.
Max and Damian, I want to come to both of y'all with a question, because obviously, especially with you, Max, you're incredibly passionate about the Giants. Giants won the Super Bowl in 2007. Who were their wide receivers? It was.
But yeah, before they start, in 2007, I'm gonna do both championship years because I'm pretty sure you're gonna touch on both of them. 2007, there were Plaxico Burress, Armani Toomer, I believe Dominic Hicks still played for the team, or Dominic Hickson. Kevin Boss was the tight end, stuff like that. I believe the argument he's trying to make is you don't need top flight talent at wide receiver to win Super Bowls, and that's true for some teams. But in order to do that, every other piece on the team has to be solid. So you don't need the wide receivers, because this is a passing league. You need to be able to pass the ball. And I'm not saying you need Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham, or Julio Jones, but you need a receiver that you can depend on third down, fourth down, that can get you those tough yardage. You need receivers that can do that. But first, you need a quarterback that can get them the ball, and you need an offensive line that can protect that said quarterback, which the Giants don't have.
Plaxico Burress and Armani Toomer.
Yeah, Plax and Armani the first one, and then
right.
Hicks and
that's right. Well, in 2011, you had Victor Cruz. You had Victor Cruz with Akeem Nicks, okay, and Mario Manningham.
Right. And Manningham was, by the way, Tyree and Manningham caught the big passes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a rhetorical question. What I'm asking, where I'm coming with the question is this: they have proven that you can win the Super Bowl with very good players, a collection of very good players on the same page, as opposed to somebody elite. So my question to you is this: is it possible that your Giants are of the mindset that the formula that worked was quality players together, as opposed to some elite dude standing above the crowd that we potentially can perceive as a problem down the road?
I love that question. Look, when the Giants...
Why? All right. Why does Odell look like a problem? I mean, yeah, he likes to dance. Yeah, he likes to do all this shit. But it seems like every single commentator is saying that Odell is a problem. Well, not every single. I hate when I generalize like that. All right. A majority of them are saying that he's a problem, while the minority are making stronger cases of why he's not the problem and why he's not the issue, and why really all the pieces around him is what makes it look like he's a distraction, because all we're really paying attention to is him. And this is where Odell is getting it fucked up, and this is his problem. The loudest person in the room is usually the person that's being looked at the most. So, you may not be the one that's involved in all the shit. You may not be the one that's involved in anything. But the fact that you are the loudest, and we're not just talking, vocally. He's the loudest with his personality. He has a very big personality, and he seems to look like he likes to have fun a lot. And with a guy like that in the locker room that's so, I'm not gonna say divided, but that's so all over the place. At one moment they're totally in for each other, but then another moment they can't stand each other. And with a locker room like that, usually the loudest, the most noticeable person in the room is usually the one that's at fault for some reason. That's what I'm getting from this situation, because no player that plays with Odell, not even players that left that played with Odell, the front office, nobody is coming out and saying this dude is a problem. At least you see with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're trying to address the, I guess, Antonio Brown issue that they feel like they have. Even though I already stated that I believe that's Mike Tomlin's fault. And also, another thing to follow up on that, man. I was watching one of these segments, and one of the former players, now analysts, said that when Bill Cowher was in Pittsburgh, he had no say. Now that Mike Tomlin's there, he has no say in what happens with the team. Somebody needs to be responsible for this. If not the head coach, then the front office needs to be responsible. If they're the ones that's making all the decisions, if they're the one that, like, somebody needs to be responsible for this. But the reason why I put the onus on Mike Tomlin is because you're the coach. The players report to you. You are in the locker room a majority of the time. The culture of the locker room is on you. The front office just makes all the roster moves. You are the one that has to set the tone in the locker room. This is why this is on Mike Tomlin. Now, when it comes to Odell Beckham, I just believe Odell Beckham is being dragged through the mud, man, and I don't understand why. This almost feels worse than when Deshaun Jackson left Philly. When Deshaun Jackson left Philly, Philly wanted to come out and say, Deshaun Jackson might have been involved in some gang activity and all that stuff. They're like, why is that important? If you didn't want him anymore, just say, we felt like it was time for us to move on. Deshaun couldn't help us win, and that's it. Why the hell did you got to bring that up? That's not important. And the fact that you felt the need to bring it up said a lot about you and your organization and how you feel about these players. And now I fully see and understand why Riley Cooper stayed in that locker room for 2 years after that video came out of him, saying the N-word or whatever. Now I see why.
Didn't have, they had Shockey and Barber, and then they didn't have them, and they did well because they had personalities and whatever. Right. They had Plex, and they won the Super Bowl. Plex was an elite receiver, by the way.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Stephen A, fix your fucking face. Yes, he was. Plexico Burress, I'm not saying he was a top 10 receiver, but even top 15, top 20 is a lot. That's high. Because you got to look at how many receivers are on each team. Like, there's at least 4 receivers on each team. And that's at a minimum. So if there's 4 receivers on every single team in the NFL, that's over 120 players at one position. And you got to think about teams that have 6 receivers. There's a lot of receivers. For him to be top 20, yes. I believe up to 25. Once you get in the top 25 as far as wide receivers, you're considered an elite receiver. Because there are a lot of receivers in the NFL.
Next season, when he literally shot himself in the foot, remember when he was a red zone target, sure. He was like a tight end at the wide receiver position, sure. But Plaxico was nothing to sleep on, man. Like, Plaxico was a really good receiver. When he was in Pittsburgh, he was really good. That's why he went to New York and made all that fucking money. He was a really good receiver in Pittsburgh. He turned into an elite receiver and fucking he turned into an elite receiver in what was it? In New York, in New York. Like, come on, man. I remember Plaxico Burress. And people was acting like that team was so underrated. They were such an underdog. The only reason why they were an underdog was because the Patriots was just better. I'm not saying their team was better. They just played better during the regular season. But if you want to really critique it, the New England Patriots in 2007 had one of the oldest defenses I've ever seen in the Super Bowl. You talk about Junior Seau, Teddy Bruschi, Mike Vrabel, Rodney Harrison. That's a lot of age, man, at key positions. A lot of age, man. And then when you go on the other side, you have Michael Strahan, Osi Umenyiora, Matthias Kiwanuka, Kawika Mitchell. What was the middle linebacker? Antonio Pierce. Like, younger, more athletic. The team was better on that day, but they weren't as below. I'm not gonna say below average. They wasn't as average as people like to make them out to be. Oh, there was a major upset. One of the greatest upset. The reason why it was so great was because New England was pretty much winning games. But if you look at that season, late in the season, New England's just, instead of winning games by 20, 10, 7, now they're starting to win games by less than 7 points. And when they played the Giants, they only won that game by a field goal. I believe the Patriots was able to kick a field goal to win the game. So they wasn't running the table, and you can just see the age become an issue. And there was even a couple of people that said when they saw New York and New England play in Week 17, I forgot who said it. I believe it was a player from the Giants. I believe it was Michael Strahan. He's like, when we played the New England Patriots in Week 17, we knew if we saw this team again, we would beat them. So how are they underdogs when the first game they played was a field goal difference? I'm just saying, man.
Remember when Flex shot himself in the foot?
Yes, we all remember when he shot himself in the foot.
So that was the same Giants mentality. They were like, you know what? He's out of here. They didn't even wait for the league to do anything or medical. Like, we don't want him, and all this stuff.
And that's only because the Giants already got their Super Bowl. And a lot of times, and this is why these teams don't repeat and sometimes don't even make the playoffs. Because when some of these teams win the Super Bowl, in their mind, that gives them the next 3 to 5 years to just do nothing. And that's what the Giants did. They did nothing for 5 years. And then they won it, or 4 years, and then they won the Super Bowl again.
We can do it with a team and all this stuff. Don't forget they'd already beaten Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh that year, so they didn't have Plex. They lose to the Eagles in the playoffs. And had they won that game, Arizona comes to them. They beat Arizona and Giants. Then they played Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl. Like, they may have sacrificed back-to-back Super Bowls on the altar of that philosophy. When you have a different kind of talent, you just don't let him go. Antonio Brown's an exception. That's a bad situation. Odell's not, his teammates like him by and large.
Yes. And this is the thing. How is he a distraction when everybody in the locker room likes him? And if anything, after he came out and said that, or he questioned the team's heart, they actually played better for a few games after that whole statement was made. They came out and they played better for the few games after that. So how is he a distraction? Come on,
because
bro.
he's being compared to Saquon Barkley, who's like the most talented running back that anyone's ever seen, and has the kind of attitude everyone likes. Doesn't mean you throw out the baby with the bathwater. Odell doesn't have Saquon.
And that's all it was, and that's what I said a week ago. The Giants wanted to trade Odell last year, and I believe this. They wanted to get rid of him, but they had no insurance policy. They had no other player that they can use as bait to draw fans in to come spend their money at their goddamn stadium. So they needed somebody so they could move on from Odell. And I honestly believe they wouldn't have moved on from Odell at all if they could get a quarterback that can get him the ball, and if they could fix that offensive line. I can see them keeping him, but I don't believe they could do all of that this year. So the best thing they can do in their mind is move him for assets that you could use to improve the team. But they was just waiting for the right time to pull the trigger. That's all they're waiting for. They're waiting, and now they got it. Their saving grace is Saquon. Now that you got Saquon, people are gonna want to come and see him play. He's at the running back position that now the running back can both run the ball and catch the ball out of the backfield. He could be used like Ezekiel Elliott's being used. Now you have your saving grace. Now you can move on from Odell without the backlash from the fans. And that's all they were waiting for.
Not liking him, it's about getting other parts for the team. Like, you have this great stud receiver.
That's bullshit. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but when I turn on TV and I see Odell Beckham as a topic of conversation, somebody in the room is saying, he's a distraction. You need to leave him alone because he's doing all this wacky shit and he's always involved in some stuff.
That's usually the one person, at least one person is saying this shit. So, you know.
Receiver and obviously running back now, and then that's all you have.
Listen, Molly.
So wait a minute. So hold on. So let me ask you a question. So if you're the Giants, you go out there and get a young quarterback this year, which they should do, by the way. You don't think Odell Beckham would help Dwayne Haskins?
Exactly. If they had the quarterback, if the offensive line, honestly, all the offensive line has to do is play better. They have the pieces to protect. I don't know who their offensive line coach is, but they need to bring somebody in that can shore up this offensive line. They have all the pieces. They drafted Will Hernandez last year. They have Nate Solder this year. I mean, from last year. They signed him out of free agency. I mean, they have pieces. I believe they still got, what's his name, Winberg or something like this, the center. They still have all these guys. So all you really need to do is just you need to get their production up. Now, if they can get their production up, honestly, an argument could be made, and I'm not saying that, I'm not putting that 100% on Eli. But an argument could be made. Eli is pretty much a stationary target. He doesn't really move that much anymore. Argument could be made that a lot of these sacks is because Eli holds on to the ball for too long, or he's just not doing what he can to evade the sacks or evade the pressure. Argument can be made for that. They can be. It's kind of like that situation in Dallas where Dak kept saying they're not getting open. I don't have nobody to throw to, and then Cole Beasley came out and said we're getting open. So it could be that. But if you get a young quarterback in there like Kyler Murray, maybe Dwayne Haskins, or that kid from what's his name? The kid from Iowa, I believe. The third projected quarterback on the board. Is that the one? No, the kid from Duke. Daniel Jones, that's his name. Daniel Jones. If you get somebody in there like that, man, I mean, look, who knows?
Of course I do. Of course, but I'm just saying if they need other parts, if they need more help on the O-line, if they need more help on defense. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me answer that, Damien. The answer to that question is, of course, Odell Beckham Jr. can help. What I'm saying is that if you're an ownership group with a history with 2 Super Bowl championships and 3 Super Bowl appearances in this millennium on your docket, and you're of the mindset, that quality, really, really good players who are together trumps one being above the crowd, okay? I'm saying, can they not make the argument that works for them?
Yes,
that's all I'm asking.
What I'm saying is this, Damien, as you know, it's not hard to find. The Giants have just been inept. It's not hard to find league average competent offensive linemen, so your offensive line isn't just a giant hole, right? What it is hard to find is a receiver in his prime who's getting paid better than everyone else, and Bill Belichick looks at him and goes, not only do I want him and I want to give him the money, I'm going to give you stuff so that I may give him the money. That dude is hard to find.
How about drafting better on both sides of the ball? Okay, while we're sitting here talking about Odell Beckham Jr., how about drafting better on the offensive line? How about getting better talent on the defensive side of the ball?
Response? No, Damian Woody. It's not as simple as that. It's a lot easier just to blame the one little black dude sitting in the corner with bleached hair who likes to dance on Instagram and all this shit. It's easier to blame him. He's the easier scapegoat. You know why? Because Odell does it to himself. Odell does it. I'm talking pre-contract. Odell did it to himself. He allowed himself to be a pawn when it comes to just throwing all the blame on this person. He allowed himself to become that. And now they're going to run with it. Now they're going to take it and they're going to fucking run with it. And it doesn't matter if it's accurate, doesn't matter if it's valid, even if it's fair. It doesn't matter. Odell gave them the ammunition they need to accuse him of, you're the reason why this is going on, you're the reason why all these issues are here. And it's his fault. And so it's easier just to blame him
than it is. Because if you look at Odell and you blame Odell, it's just on one person. But then but on the other side, if you don't blame Odell and you say, you know, maybe we need to draft better, now you're making the front office look incompetent. Now it's not about Odell. Now it's about the whole infrastructure of the Giants now. And how Max and Stephen A, they like to say that the Giants, for a very long time, has been one of the most well-run organizations. And now they don't look so well-run because you're not drafting well. You're not, and say, I can't. No team can draft Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer every single year for 20, 30, 40 years. No team can do that. You're going to miss on something. Like, look at the Patriots, man. The Patriots, a lot of their first-round picks, the last first-round pick that actually paid off, like top 10 paid off, was Gerard Mayo. Or, you know, I'm just going to go complete first round. Was Gerard Mayo. You had Gerard Mayo, Dante Hightower, Sonny Michel. And those are the only ones that I can really name, man. I believe Nate Solder may have been a first-round pick. I'm not sure. Yeah, I believe he was. Nate Solder was a first-round pick. So you're talking about 4 first-round players in the past 20 years that the Patriots have had first-round picks. And you're telling me that 4 players are the only ones that actually worked out of the first round? It's not easy to draft. It's not easy to... You have to put a lot of faith, and you have to have a lot of faith in the judgment of the people that work for your company to be able to continuously draft high-caliber talent with great personalities that it all fits into one. Because a lot of times you're either going to draft a player with the crazy amount of skill but has a seriously cancerous personality, or you're going to draft a player with all the personality in the world but doesn't have the game to match up. And that's going to happen more often than not. There's way too many players in the draft, and not all of them pan out. Maybe 10% actually pan out long term. So, I don't know. It's easier just to blame Odell than it is to blame it on all that.
And my response to that is, how about making up your mind? The fact of the matter is, you guys have religiously stated that a collection of multiple parts that are of quality and of one mind and one agenda is different than a guy. We have sat here and maligned on numerous occasions guys who were great but stood above the crowd. And now y'all are saying, listen, I don't have a problem with Odell. I'm saying is question for the Giants.
What I'm saying is, everybody can't beat New England. See, that's where everybody.
But they've been the closest to it. Hold on, Jimmy. They've been the closest to it. They got 2 Super Bowl rings, and 2 of them were against New England.
Oh God. And this is what I'm talking about. All right, real quick, and then I'm done. All right, this is what I'm talking about. That last point that Stephen A. tried to make, it makes the organization look incompetent. Like, at this point, if every team in the NFL knows that you can't do what New England does, and you're still trying to, you're doing nothing but putting your team at a disadvantage. But like Stephen A.'s last point suggested, and like I said, man, like, They believe the Giants are a well-run organization, even though for the past, 7 years, none of the moves that they made, maybe besides Odell and Saquon. We have to see how this whole Odell thing turns out, because if they trade him, when they could just hold on to him for another year, maybe 2, because he did sign a 5-year deal, and he only played 1. So if you have him for 2 more years, when you decide to move him, with 2 years left in this contract, he'll be maybe 27, 28, still young, and it's still good for 1 more contract. This would have been a major fail for them. And I believe the biggest reason why this team failed is because they refused to move on from Eli. Eli has hampered them and kept them from actually achieving anything worth achieving. And they've been a mockery in the NFC for a very long time. When you talk about they won the Super Bowl like 6 years ago, 7 years ago. So, that's it. All right.